If I look as though I'm about to sweat to death, mind your business. It's summer and I'm a sertraline queen. In the past month or so, I have bought or been gifted or otherwise acquired 12 books. Let's get into it. First book I'm going to mention is a book that made a lot of people's lists lately as one of the best books that they've read all year. And that book is a literary fiction, Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. I actually don't know a whole lot about this book, but I believe it does deal with the idea of martyrdom, and I believe there's a man who is our protagonist who is very interested in the concept of martyrdom. I think this is a book that's set in Iran. I don't want to delve too much into what it's about because I want to be surprised. I want to go into this pretty blind, but I've heard really great things about this and I think the writing is something else, and I think the concept sounds really interesting, what I know of it at the very least anyway. Next then is another contemporary literary fiction book, and I've actually already read this one. I know, who is she? This is These Violent Delights by Micah Nemirever. I still don't know how to pronounce that, I apologize, but this is a book that is lauded as a dark academia. So we follow two boys who meet in college and they're both from quite different backgrounds. One of them is quite affluent and comes from a family who's quite cold and distant, and then we have another one who comes from a much more modest background, who has a really loving family around him, and they become friends and develop this relationship that's really quite intense. And this whole book feels incredibly claustrophobic and sticky and just really tense, and I absolutely loved it. It was exactly the kind of book I was looking for at the time that I picked this one up. I'm really glad to have read it. I really enjoyed it. I ended up giving it like a high 4 stars. The writing in this is really great. It's such an infuriating book about privilege and about people who are just so ungrateful for the things that they have. Both of our protagonists are so self-righteous, and the intensity of this book just really builds and builds until we find ourselves witnesses to a really intense act of violence. This book is uncomfortable but brilliant. Next is yet another lit fic, and it is by Kristen Hanna, and the book I'm talking about is The Women. I picked this one up a little bit on a whim because I decided to book a ticket to go see Kristen Hanna in Conversation in Dublin in September, and she will be explicitly talking about this book. So this is another historical fiction written by Kristen Hanna, and in this one we follow a nurse named Frankie. In 1965 she registers to go be a nurse during the Vietnam War. I believe this is her story and the story of the nurses that she meets while she's there as well. I really like Kristen Hanna's writing. I find it very digestible, very interesting, and often quite sad, which is something I quite like in a book. So I have like medium high hopes for this one. Next then is another book that I've actually read, and it's a Stephen King. It's Misery. I had never read this one up until very, very recently. So this is a book where we follow a writer, and he is in an accident, and he is known for having written this series of books about a woman named Misery. They're very famous, very popular. He hates them. He feels like they're a way to make money for him to write his more serious works, and in the latest iteration of these books he actually kills off Misery as the main character. So we start out as our author wakes up in bed in a lot of pain, and it turns out he has been rescued from an accident by none other than Annie Wilkes. She is an ex-nurse, and she is absolutely devastated when she realizes that Paul, our author, has killed off Misery. And this is a book of grave intensity. It gets really violent, it gets really gross. Paul is trapped there by Annie Wilkes, and most of the book is basically set within this one room. I thought that might make for quite a boring book in many ways, but actually the work that King did on the characters in this book is incredible, and the hype for this book is real. I had never seen the film before, so I didn't really know what to expect. So I went into it pretty blind, knowing the bare bones of the story, and ended up really enjoying it. I will say that there are some problematic aspects within this book. You can tell that it's a book of its time, so I can't say that I absolutely loved it and that I agreed with how it was written in some parts, but for the most part I really enjoyed this one, and it was exactly the palate cleanser that I needed. And then I had been in the mood for a dystopian book for ages and ended up picking up this one. So this one, I had seen a film iteration of this book but never actually read the book. The book I'm talking about is I Am Legend by Richard Matheson. I thought I knew what this one was about, having seen the film with Will Smith in it, but turns out I knew nothing. This is very different than the film that I saw. We follow a man as he lives in his own house in a world where vampires exist, and they're basically trying to get in to get him. And that's what this book is about. I think I wound up giving this book about 3 stars because there's something in this book that's good, but I felt like it never quite got to where I wanted it to go to, and I don't know where I wanted it to go, but I felt like it was missing something, and that's potentially why they changed up the story a bit for the latest film. I haven't seen any of the other adaptations, so I can't tell you. I did enjoy this, but I didn't love it. Next then is a book that I was sent by Vintage Books. It's due to be published by Penguin on 18th of September, so next month. And the book I'm talking about is What We Can Know by Ian McEwan. Ian McEwan is a really interesting author because I feel like you can't pin down his genre. He's written so many books, and I've only read On Chesil Beach by him, and I thought that book was impeccable. It's one of the very few books that I've ever given 5 stars to, and when I heard the synopsis to this one, I was like, I gotta have it. This is a book that sort of falls into, I believe, like eco-literature. It's one of those books that spans like the past, the present and the future, and I tend to love books that do that. So I'm going to read the back because I feel like it'll just give you a better idea of what this book is about than I can give. 2014, a great poem is read aloud and never heard again. For generations people speculate about its message, but no copy has yet been found. And then in 2119, the lowlands of the UK have been submerged by rising seas. Those who survive are haunted by the richness of the world that has been lost. What We Can Know is a masterpiece that spans the past, present and future to ask profound questions about who we are and where we are going. It doesn't give much away, but I have a feeling this is a book that I'm going to really enjoy. I've wanted to read more Ian McEwan since I read On Chesil Beach a few years ago, and I'm really glad to be delving into this one sometime soon. Next up then is what is for me a very rare addition to my shelves. I don't read a lot of nonfiction. I want to read more nonfiction, but I feel like I can never find exactly the kind of nonfiction I want to read. But I found this one in a local bookshop, and it had been on my mind for a really long time, and I decided to buy it. I'm talking about The Lost Girls of Autism by Gina Rippon. So this is a book that's about how autism has always been seen through a male lens, how it was once believed that women couldn't be autistic, and of course now especially we're realizing that so many women are autistic, but the traditional diagnostic criteria for autism was based purely on the male perspective of autism, and when women weren't presenting as men and were masking more, there are so many women that have been overlooked and undiagnosed or diagnosed with depression or anxiety or bipolar or borderline personality disorders, and the list goes on. So this is a book about why that happened, how that happened, and I just want to know more about it. I do like nonfiction that fills me with female rage. The last nonfiction that did that was Unwell Women, and that was a book about how women are dismissed and not listened to in healthcare settings. I feel like this is of a similar sort of topic. I do quite like nonfiction about health and healthcare disparities and healthcare inequity and things like that. So this is a book that I am looking forward to. I have a feeling it will take me a while to get through, but that's okay. It's something that I wanted to read for quite some time. Next then are 2 books that I have been gifted for my birthday very kindly, and I was so delighted to receive these because look lads, we all know I've been reading The Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb for the past 2 years now, and I'm super into them, and I never stop banging on about Robin Hobb, and I guess you all probably can't wait for me to just finish with the series and move on with my life. I had almost all of the books on my shelf, so I had 14 of the books, and actually one of you, the lovely Jay, whom I met through this channel, sent me the second last book, and then my partner Sean actually bought me the last book. So I've recently just finished the 12th book in the realm of the Elderling series, and that means I only have 4 to go, and these are the final 2. I'm very excited for them. Robin Hobb's brand of fantasy is really slow. You have to work for it, but when you get to these reveals and when you get to the ending and when you figure out how things match up and work together and how this world is so enriched by each of the different books. I mean, what Robin Hobb has achieved with this series is simply incredible. I have never read 12 books in a series before. I usually give up after 2 or 3, but I am obsessed with these books, particularly the ones about Fitz and the Fool, which the last trilogy is. I can't wait to get to them, but I already feel quite sad that this series will be coming to an end for me by the end of this year. Robin Hobb's writing, as I've mentioned, is quite slow. While her books might span quite a lot of time sometimes, they don't tend to span that much story, and normally I would find that a little bit difficult to get through, but there's something about Robin Hobb's character work that I am just obsessed with, that I can never get over, that I just absolutely fall into every time I pick up one of her books, and I'm really excited to get to these final 2 books in the Fitz and the Fool trilogy and to finish out the realm of the Elderling series. So thank you to Jay and Sean for giving me these books. I'm really excited for them. In other news, I joined an in-person book club. The thing about me with book clubs is that I'm a mood reader through and through, and I don't want to read books that I don't want to read, which seems quite obvious. But if I'm not feeling a book, I just don't want to read it. And I guess the point of a book club is that you pick up and read the books that are chosen for said month. Well, for the month of August, the book that was chosen was Long Story by Vicky Nataro. If we look at this cover, straight away, for me, I can tell this is not a book that I would normally pick up off a shelf and buy. I opened the first page and I read the first sentence and I was like, oh no. But you see, the thing is, I didn't read last month's book either, so I'm definitely going to give this one a go. This is a book by an Irish author, and we follow 2 friends who I believe were both obsessed with this particular boy or man in their younger years, and they both decide, for the sake of their friendship, neither of them will take things further with him. They will both just remain friends. But then this man years later releases a memoir or an autobiography, something of the sorts, and in it he divulges some stories about one or both of them, and I believe that comes between their friendship a little bit. One thing I do want to do is broaden my range of Irish authors that I read from. I feel like there are a lot of books sort of in this genre, like female fiction, that I just avoid, and yet they're so well loved, and I'd love to see what it is about them that people really enjoy, and hopefully there's something in them that I really like as well. And then back in April, I saw a special edition of a book that I hadn't read was being released, and on a whim I decided to buy it, and I haven't read it yet, so I don't know if that was a good or a bad idea, but I'm talking about the notorious Quicksilver by Callie Hart, and this is, I believe, a romantasy. It's a really nice edition, so obviously it's hardback. It's got these lovely silver edges and it's got these lovely end pages. So it is quite a beautiful looking book. It's quite a chunky book, and I don't know what it's about, and I don't want to read what it's about, but lately I have been feeling a little bit slumpy in my reading, and often when that happens I feel like I need to go back and read either a thriller or a young adult fantasy or a romantasy, and I feel like this is a book that might just be exactly the kind of thing that I need lately. I know that a lot of people have read this book. This book is massive and it's very divisive. Some people love it, some people hate it, and there's a new one coming out later this year, so hopefully it's something that I enjoy, but we don't know until I read it. And then last but certainly not least is a book that I have been trying to source for a really long time. Not that I haven't been able to find it, but it's a book that has been just really expensive. The book that I'm talking about is House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski, and this is a book with a significant cult following. So I kept finding this book anywhere between like 30 and 50 euro, and to me that is just too expensive for a book that's not like a special edition or anything like that. But lo and behold, I went onto Vinted recently and found it for €9 and it's like brand new. I snapped it up. So this is a book, as I've mentioned, with a particularly large cult following, and it is set in a house. And while I don't know the ins and outs of the story, this is a book that's supposed to be a very immersive, intense, horrendous, horrifying, just really claustrophobic, immersive experience, and I want to know what it's about. It is formatted really strangely. There are different colors, there are different fonts, things are written upside down, things are crossed out, things are underlined, and it just really intrigues me. It is a very, very long book. It is almost 700 pages, and as you can see, this book is pretty big, like quite tall. There's a lot of text on each of the pages. I don't know how it's going to go, but the people that love this book absolutely love it. And lately I have been really in the mood for like dystopian fiction and gothic fiction and horror and things like that, and I feel like this is something that is really going to tickle that for me. It's August now, obviously, and we're going to be coming into the Burr months, September, October, and I feel like they're the perfect months to pick up a book like this, and I'm really excited to get to it. I feel like this book has had so much hype online over the years, and I am so glad that I found this book secondhand, and I'm really delighted to get the opportunity to read it sometime soon. So that is a bit of an eclectic mix of books. What else would you expect from me? Hopefully we have some bangers in there somewhere along the line. So let me know in the comments below if you have read any of these books, what you thought of them. Will I like them? Will I not like them? Otherwise, if you want to see more from me, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for your time, and take care, pals. I'll chat to you soon. Bye bye.